Hi, and welcome to On the Couch Conversations with Brenda Porter, where I sit down with artists and those who work with artists and have a conversation about what they do, how they do it, and how they feel. Today's guest is Lexi McKay. Lexi describes herself as a biracial woman whose main focus is as a stage manager around Atlanta. She loves to teach technical theater to kids whenever she can, and as an administrator for Atlanta Theater Arts for Justice and on the board of She NYC Arts. Her most recent theater accomplishment is getting to work on the Hamilton stage management team while they were in town recently. She says when she's not working, she's finding a quiet corner to curl up with her dogs and to work on her next play she's written. Or maybe she's working on a certificate or taking classes and something to add to her tool belt. I'd like you to join me in welcoming Lexi McKay. Welcome, Lexi.
Hi, thanks for having me.
I'm glad that you are here. You know, I've never been a stage manager. I'm not organized enough, and I need, as a director, I need a stage manager. So it's a job that I know is difficult. And you recently were on the stage management team of Hamilton the musical, that's playing at the Fox right now, or just close. Yeah. So
Yeah, it just started at the Fox on Sunday
and runs for.
Until September 26th.
What do you mean when you say you were on their stage management team? Because they obviously have a stage manager that's running the show.
Yes. So because it's a tour, so they have a production stage manager, a stage manager, and an ASM. And there are, I think, 7 Hamilton tours in total, because there's 5 in the US, 1 in London, 1 in Australia. So I think, so 7. And because they had been dark for so long, each tour got a 4th on their team. We were all under the contract of like PAs, but we worked as the second assistant stage manager while we were on the show, and we just kind of helped them get back up and running, because I mean, not only were you doing normal stage management things, they had a short amount of time to relearn all of the cues and all of the transitions and how does this work.
So how was it different for you working with a national tour and working with some of the regional theaters we have in town?
Well, Hamilton itself is already a little different, because like one of the main things, because this is the thing that like as a stage manager, I don't enjoy that much, and it's blocking. Like that's my least favorite thing about stage management. I'll say that. But it was really odd because with them, the stage manager doesn't do a lot of the blocking because it's all choreography. So it often falls under like the dance supervisor.
Oh, so, you lucky person.
Yes, but that was like already like super weird to me, because I was like, because I mean, it really is all choreography. Like the entrance and exits a lot of times are also choreography, because they'll like turn and be off stage, put a coat on, and then they're back. So I mean, it's not even really an exit. It's just I'm a new character and dancing again. So already that was kind of a little weird, but like as a whole, working on the stage management team, I mean, honestly, I kind of liked it a lot, because everyone had their own specific job, which sometimes in regional theater, we get a little mushy and a little blended, which also is super fun. Like when I do new works, that's my favorite thing about new works, is everyone's job just kind of mushes together and we're all something. But on big scales like musicals, like that was a new pace for me, because I've been in the new works world for a while.
You would do it again then?
Oh yeah, for sure. I'm currently in one of the dressing rooms at the Fox Theater because I'm helping them today. And I'm like, maybe if I stick around long enough, they'll just take me with them.
No, because we cannot afford to have you leave us. No, thank you.
I would come back just for a little bit, make some good money, go see some places. I'm not a tour person. That is something I learned from this. I'm not a tour person. I very much like when strike happens, the show's done. We're done. For them, strike happens and the next day they're in a new city putting it up again. And I'm like, oh, I don't know how I feel about that. I couldn't do that long term.
With theaters just starting back up, how did they handle COVID policies?
We have so many COVID protocols. So we started the first week because that was when that would have been the end of June. So that was when things were getting better and the Delta variant wasn't as rampant as it was. So like that first week and a half, like we were no masking in the room, but it was mainly like just the swings there. So I mean, it was only like 15 of us in total, but like we were fully not masked, but just staying the 6 feet apart. Then the Delta variant ramped up and we were all fully masked all the time. And then once everyone else came, so all of the crew and the main company came and joined us with the swings, we started testing once a week. And then the Delta variant got worse and we tested twice a week. And then last week we started testing 3 times a week.
Oh, wow.
And we're fully masked at all times. The dressers have to wear eye protection and a mask. So a lot of them wear either goggles and a mask or goggles and a shield. And like we can't hand off water bottles and stuff because, you know, like sometimes when you're an actor doing a big scene and you transition off the stage and you have like this amount of time, someone's there sometimes with your water bottle, you take a chug and you run back on.
Right.
You can't even do that. Like we can't touch water bottles. We can't take trash from people. We can't do any of like the dressers even, because obviously there's a lot of dancing and they're very sweaty. They can't even take the costumes and like, you know, throw it over an arm. There's clothes baskets and the actors have to chunk them in the clothes baskets for them to then touch it. So it's definitely, it's a new world that we're navigating.
Wow.
Mhm.
Wow. I mean, obviously our regional theaters are putting into place various protocol, and for the actors as well as for audience members, we are taking a new look at things, and it's interesting. We're in
Yeah,
like you said, we're in a new world. So overall, how has the pandemic affected you and your work?
Weirdly enough, I got the most work I ever got in this pandemic because I was still, I guess, new-ish to town because before the pandemic, that would have marked, well, the summer of the pandemic marked 2 years that I had been in Atlanta. And so the pandemic itself kind of like gave me enough time, like with you, I've been like, oh, I've never worked in Impact Theater. Let's go do a thing. Or like, you know, a lot of theaters were doing non-union shows. So places like even True Colors that I've never gotten the opportunity to work at, they were like, well, we need a non-union person. Like, are you willing? So for me, it opened honestly a lot of doors just, but I think the main reason for that was simply because I wasn't union. I was able to kind of dabble a little more because a lot of theaters couldn't do union contracts during the pandemic.
Working with Impact. So I was very lucky and blessed to have you come do some work with us. And I enjoyed working with you. For those people who don't know, we worked on a piece called Racial Reconciliation, where we did short readings of pieces about race and justice and injustice and equity and equality. Since that time, people are not out marching for racial justice in the way that they were at the time that we did that. How do you think the racial atmosphere has changed since we did that piece?
I think in the world, I mean, I can only really speak for the South because born and raised here, so I don't have as much connections outside of the South. Since then, because that was what, mid-November-ish.
Mhm.
I feel like we're back to the let's sweep it under the rug. Let's not talk about it again. We had our time, we talked about it, now let's stop. For theater, I think some places are trying to do that. And I think some places are going to succeed because they'll have enough people that are like actors and crew that are behind it of like, whatever, I don't care, I'm still getting a job. But I have seen, especially in Atlanta theater, more people actively trying, even if their trying isn't like great. They're still trying. even since then. And I've seen it a lot more, honestly, since then, because people really started, I would say probably around like, the vaccine rollout, they were like, oh my God, we can start planning a season again. And so that was kind of when it kicked in, I feel like, for some theaters to be like, cool, so we just got screamed at for 9 months about things, and we can either ignore it, pretend it never happened, or take the information, redo everything, or take the information and attempt a little bit. And I've seen the attempt a little bit, I think, is mostly what I've seen.
You work with an organization called Theater Artists for Justice.
Yeah.
Tell me about that. Does that relate to some of the things we were just talking about in terms of racial equality, equity?
Yeah, a little bit. So Liz Campbell and Skylar Burks, who both work at the Alliance, kind of created it. Well, not kind of, they did create it. I want to say late April-ish, because it was like they were on it. Like George Floyd happened, really got in the media, and they were like, we need to do something. And so they started rounding up a few people, and really what it became was protest support. So we had group chats, and if somebody went out, so like say we were going to a protest together, I would be like, hey, me and Brenda are going to a protest together, da da da. And then if something bad happened, somebody would send in the text, hey, you need to get out of this area immediately, flash bombs are going off. And then we would check in and be like, hi, Lexi and Brenda are safe. And so that was kind of the main thing of what it became. And even we had people every night a protest happened on standby as cars in the area of like, hey, if we text you that you need to go pick up these people because they're in an emergency, go for it. We need you to go to this area immediately. So we were a whole bunch of stage managers that got together. Like it's literally a group full of stage managers, one lighting designer, and an actor. Like, so we just kind of organized a whole bunch of stuff, and I got involved, I want to say like mid-July. So like they were already like a well-oiled machine by the time I got involved. And I helped with like coordinating of like, okay, these people have checked in, they're safe, or, oh, I need to send this person out to go pick up these people right now. So that's what I did. And then we transitioned over once the protests kind of started dying down, because we had that weird lull where like there were no protests, and then they started back up once election world happened. But that weird lull that we had, we were like, well, what can we do for Atlanta theater? Because by that point, the racial reckoning Zoom calls had happened, and people were getting called out on social media a lot. And so we created these workshops, and our first workshop was a lighting workshop where actually a professor from Savannah College Art and Design, which is where I went, she came in and just kind of chatted and actually got together a whole bunch of previous students that she'd had who are people of color, because she is a white woman. And that was her big thing, is she was like, yes, I do teach how to light people of color, but she was like, I also want you to hear from people of color who are in the industry and not sit here and listen to me all day, which was really great of her, because we didn't even ask her to do that. We were just like, teach the lighting designers in Atlanta that you can use something other than amber to put on an actor's skin. Like, please and thank you. And so she did a whole workshop of like, how do you light a darker person next to a lighter person, or two dark people, or two really, really white people, or this or that. And then we did a hair workshop, which we know we need one of those everywhere. Hair and wig workshop. There was a dramaturgy one that happened. Oh, I'm missing one. We had another one, but yeah, so we did a few of like these workshops of like, here's literally a master class that you can get for free. You can't say now that you haven't gotten the education. Do something with it.
Who was it that was invited to these?
Anyone was invited. We pushed them on social media. We had people from like different countries that were like, oh my gosh, I saw this on this Facebook page and no one teaches this over here. I'd like to join. So it was just so many people. And if you email Atlanta Theater Artists for Justice, we still have all of the recordings that willing to hand out to anybody, because again, that was our main reason for doing it, is we've paid our people, and now there are these masterclass things that we have just for theater makers, because I mean, we hear it all the time, especially in the industry of like, oh, well, I was never taught that. Or,
Right.
oh, I didn't think that was different. And it's like, well, now you can't say you were never taught it. Now you can say, oh, I decided I didn't want to do that.
Mhm. So how is that different from your, oh, sorry, I'm gonna mess this up. You're on a board of
Yeah, I'm on She NYC Arts, the board, and that is a festival that I was involved with last year as their production manager. And I joined them on the board because I'm actually their diversity officer for all of their festivals, because they have a festival here in Atlanta, here in New York, and then in LA as well. And it's all women identifying people, and like on the board and everything. But it's mainly we find playwrights for new works of women identifying people, get their work out into the world. I mean, it can be anything. Like, if I wrote a play and it was all men, like that still counts because me as a woman wrote it. And they have these big festivals that happen. So the LA one and the New York one has happened, and the Atlanta one is coming up next week or a week and a half from now.
Oh, wow. So how does somebody find out about it or attend it or be a part of it?
So you can just go to Google and do She NYC festival.com, and it pops you right up where it's at. Because I do know some of the protocols have changed, because I haven't really been involved in like the COVID world of it, because I am just a diversity officer on it, of like, things have gone wrong and you need a mediator. I now get to get called in. So like I get reports and stuff of like, oh, the show was great. I'm like, that's wonderful. Fantastic. Glad you didn't need me. So yeah, you can go look at their website, and they have a lot of information on it.
What projects are you working on now?
I mean, honestly, besides Hamilton World, I'm not really working on anything. Again, I just kind of keep showing up at Hamilton, hoping they just take me on tour with them.
How did you get into stage management? Did you want to do that always, or did you do something else?
No, I for gosh, a very long time. I'm trying to think. Well, okay, so I went through phases of a few things when I was like younger. So when I was very young, I wanted to be a singer. That was like the goal. Then I learned I have awful stage fright, and I've never grown out of that. So we said no to the singer. And then I wanted to be a writer, and I still write now, off on the side whenever I can. But then around like 7th grade, I wanted to be a pediatric psychologist, and that stuck. That's what I wanted to be, was a pediatric psychologist. And I ended up finding theater completely by accident. Like I was not the best person in school. Like the school structures that we have for a lot of public schools, which is the memorize this, now regurgitate it, that education doesn't work well for me. So I wasn't doing great in school. And so my mom was like, you need to get more involved, do something. And drama club was the only thing that would let you join in the middle of the year. And so I joined drama club. And still in all this, thought I wanted to be a pediatric psychologist. And then I was like, oh, I kind of like this building things, and people get to sing around me all the time, and there's plays. Like this is kind of fun. And then when I went off to college, before I'd gone to college, I actually did Rising Star with SCAD, which is a program for incoming seniors. High school seniors can take 2 courses with SCAD to kind of like, it helps you get credits, but also to kind of see if this is what you wanted to do. And I really thought that was going to be the end of my art journey, which is why I wanted to do it. Because I really thought I was going to go to school for pediatric psychology. And I was like, this would be a nice little button on my art world if I got to take some college courses. And honestly, can't tell you what happened. Is I got accepted into different schools, and something in my gut was like, I don't know if this is right. And I asked my grandfather, and his answer always, he doesn't always listen to it, but his answer always is flip a coin. Because his logic is, whatever it lands on, if you're excited about it, then you should do the thing. If you're not excited about it, then it's not the right option.
Oh.
And so it flipped, and it was, you should go to school for pediatric psychology. And I was not excited. It was like the biggest sinking feeling in my gut. And he was like, then don't do it. He's like, go to school for art. And that's how I became a stage manager.
So do you use this coin flipping?
I honestly, I don't often, it depends, because I am one of those people, like, I'm a little indecisive in like my personal life. When I'm stage managing, I can be decisive because I'm like, things have to get done. But in my personal life, I'm a little indecisive. And so I'm the type of person, I'll go and to find people and soundboard off of them to talk things out. And then if I can't get anywhere soundboarding, I usually always end up back at my grandfather, and he's like, well, flip a coin. So it happens sometimes if I can't soundboard off of other people to come up with the answer.
Oh, wise grandfather, wise grandfather.
Yep.
So you also teach.
I do. I teach technical theater.
Technical theater as in all aspects of technical theater?
Normally all aspects, but once it hits a certain age, it's kind of like, it's a little more advanced work. So normally once I hit like junior, senior in high school, they usually want like really advanced knowledge. So I normally only then teach scenic design and stage management. But if it's anyone under that, I'll teach everything.
Where do you teach and how?
So I got into teaching technical theater when I was still in college. I worked with Savannah Children's Theater. And when you were the stage manager for their shows during the summer, you were also the art teacher. And the art teacher, you made things for the show with the kids. And so that's how I got into it, is we made props and accessories and hats and stuff. And I was like, oh, I like this. And I'm not half bad at it, because I've always liked teaching kids. And then when I came here and to Atlanta, I kind of like just bounced around theater. Like I've worked at the Jewish Community Center, helping with technical theater. I've worked at Georgia Ensemble Theater. That's the main place, honestly, that I teach technical theater, because they have a really good technical theater program. I mean, yeah, there's somebody else. Oh, I worked with Theatre du Rêve last summer. Virtually, we did a technical theater. I think that's it. Those are the main places I've worked doing technical theater. Yeah, I'm a firm believer behind that. If like you're an actor, you should be required to take production classes. And if you're a production or technical person, you should be required to take acting classes. Because I purposely took, because I knew within like my first year at SCAD that I wanted to be a stage manager. So I purposely took a directing class. I took some acting classes, hated them. Well, I liked the directing course because I do like directing, but the acting classes, one of the worst experiences of my life. But I'm like, but now I can speak to actors and I understand what a director's saying sometimes, because I don't come from an acting background. So I think I'm a firm believer it should be a requirement, and it's not.
Yeah, I think I would have been just the opposite. I loved all the acting, the technical, I just like, the idea of lighting. Oh my God, I don't care about lighting.
Except that you don't want to get on a ladder and lug a 10-pound light with you and hang it from the ceiling.
See, I don't mind helping you. I don't mind helping you, but I don't care about the angles, and as long as an actor I can be seen and I can find my light. I don't care about how you got that light and that color. I do care about if I'm looking good, but yep. I don't care how you make me look good. But so that's one of the things I should have taken a class in, so I could understand it better, and so I could speak lighting to somebody or speak set to somebody. You know, I can say I want it to look, I just want it to work, no, it's not working. Why? Well, it's just not, just do something else. That's not a really good direction for me to go in. As you teach and as you work with new stage managers and even other artists, what advice would you give?
Oh, so I have two different advices. Working with new stage managers, my advice is always don't take any crap. Because a lot of times stage managers are still taught to be the secretary, quiet, mouse in the room. You are the lapdog, do as I say.
Mhm.
And I'm not into that. We're all collaborators in the room. You asked for me to be in this room, and I do have a brain, and I would like to use it. That's normally when I teach my younger babies, when I'm teaching with stage management, because a lot of them will, like, I'll have people that are still in college that have them ASMing or something for me, and they're dead silent through the whole time. Don't make any connections, don't talk to anyone, do nothing, just write notes, and then they'll send me the notes, and I'm like, no, you're a body here. Let's be a body here. And then for just other people in general, which also I would say for stage managers, just listen. There's so much you can learn just from listening. Like, I have so many people who they question all the time, like, why do I still ask to shadow tours when they come into town? Like, I asked to shadow Charlie and the Chocolate Factory when it came to town. I didn't learn anything on it. Like, I mean, I know how to stage manage. I didn't learn anything really in stage management, but I learned different lingo and different ways to do things because it was a completely different show that I've never dealt with. And it was completely different people I had never dealt with. So I'm always like, just listen in the room. You might, I don't know, learn something just randomly about life that you didn't know you needed to know. And there was a side conversation happening that they invited you into. Great. Now you've learned something.
So if you were not a stage manager, I obviously wouldn't be a pediatric psychologist. What would you do?
If I wasn't a stage manager and I couldn't do anything in art, I probably would have still gone to med school. I don't really know what I would do in med school, but it'd definitely be something with autistic and ADHD kids. So still with kids, but definitely in the more neurodivergent and disability spectrum with kids.
If you were to sum up this last year and a half in one word or phrase, what would you say?
My brain immediately said challenging.
I agree.
That was
Challenging. Yeah, I agree. Challenging.
because, like, personally, like, this past year has honestly, it's been one of the best years. Like, I mean, I didn't have anyone die from COVID. Like, everyone was safe in my bubble of people. So for me, like, I mean, it was a great year. Like, I got to fight in social justice, which I love fighting the man. Like, let me fight the man all day. And so, like, I got to do that. Like, I got to work in theater. I got to get further into my career. You know, I got to make all these wonderful connections. For, like, personally, I think it was a really fulfilling year. Cause I mean, even I got to slow down and, like, work on myself and, like, my own mental health and, you know, find my own worth in life of, oh, I don't have to be a workhorse. Like, yeah, it's great to have money. But there are other things I can do to get money besides working 100-hour weeks, 90-hour weeks. So that was really nice to find. But I mean, then everything else in the world, I mean, it was so much. It still is so much, like, all the time, that I'm just, like, emotionally drained with that. So I think that's why it was so challenging, is, like, in my bubble, I was thriving and doing great. And then there were little holes piercing in my bubble with the pandemic and this and that, that I was just like, I can't, like, these are very extreme things that are just lasting. So that's why challenging was my word. I think my brain needed to say.
When times get challenging, crime increases, and
Yeah.
and I've been upset about all the crime that is. We've got the whole pandemic happening. We have all of the awareness or people refusing to be aware of the injustice that the systemic racism that happens in this country. And then we put on to that pile all this crime that is just, Atlanta has become a pool of For me, this is how I see it. Maybe it's because I'm
There-
watching news more. I'm home and can watch news more. I don't know.
No, there's a lot more
Hmm.
crime that has built up, which like, honestly, I mean, not an expert in the world, but how I've seen it and kind of attributed it to is I feel like possibly a lot of it's going up because these people are desperate. Like they're desperate to be seen and heard, even if the things they want to say are hateful and awful, but they're desperate to be seen and heard. They're desperate to be listened to. They're desperate to save themselves for stuff that's happening up here. Because some of the people that we've had do these shootings, like in grocery stores and stuff, people have been like, oh my God, they were like the greatest person. This year's just been awful for them. And they just kind of lost it. So that's, I really think that's what it is there's so many people that are just desperate in different ways, and it's bubbling over because unless you had a strong support system to talk to about your mental health, you were talking to the demons in your head, and that doesn't always work very well.
You are a writer.
Yes, I like to write, yes.
What kind of work do you like to write?
So when I'm writing plays, I like to write historical fiction a lot. I write, normally it's not always like accurate fiction, but it's centered around something. So like the play I'm working on right now, which I hit a speed bump on it and then realized, oh, this was a play with music. And I didn't realize that. So now we're just reconfiguring everything, but it's about the 1906 massacre.
Mhm.
But that's kind of the setting of the whole thing, and it's not actually really the piece. The piece is about these 4 young men who are at Clark Atlanta University going through this time frame together of life. So that I like focusing on things of like, hey, we haven't really talked about this time period of time. Let's talk about it. And so it's not like in your face of like, yes, people are dying in the streets because massacre. And I'm, talking about these 4 gentlemen. So that's kind of what I like in the writing world is I'll find something and I'm like, oh, this disaster is a great setting. Now let's put some characters in it. And then normal, just like novel writing, I'm really into the fantasy world. I did not grow out of my middle school fantasy days. I really like the fantasy writing world.
I know you are the 3rd person that I've talked to who is doing some writing on the 1906 race riots.
Are the other 2 Amina McIntyre and Adaye? Because they also
No,
have.
that makes 5.
I would say because they have, yeah.
That makes 5. One is a gentleman named Micah Penn, and one is a woman named Tony Rivers.
Oh yeah, I didn't know that. Yes, there you go. There's your 5 now.
So 5. Wow.
I think it's because it's getting a lot more light recently. Because I mean, for me personally, like I didn't know about it until I went to college. I had no idea it existed. And then I was doing a scenic project, and our assignment was to create a design of a college dorm room during some disaster that happened from your hometown. And I Googled, and it was the AIDS epidemic or that were the first 2 things that popped up on Google. And I was like, I have never heard of this. And since then, I feel like it's also been getting a lot more traction, especially with this racial reckoning that popped up. Like, hi, Atlanta, you remember when this happened? And we were like, let's not talk about it again. We're going to talk about it now.
It's obviously something that's going to hit theaters soon on it because there are too many people that are focusing on it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and it's honestly just like a really dark history of Atlanta that's just not talked about. Because I mean, the statue where the 2 men were hung is still in downtown. Like it's still in the street where the 2 Black men were just strung up. And it's just kind of like, oh, okay. Yeah, because it was the Henry Grady statue. That's where they were.
Wow. I didn't.
But again, it's like nobody, like, I mean, it's like, it's fully still here. But again, it was just one of those things that where everybody was like, let's not talk about it. Didn't happen. And then just from this past year, was one of those things that got dug up. It's like Lake Lanier Lake Lanier originally being an all Black community. And then they were like, hi, let's flood it and make a lake. Like all of that history is now getting dug up again too. Because everyone, I feel like in the South specifically are like, so we know bad things happened and we would like to actually talk about them now instead of pretending they didn't happen.
And we need to talk about them before the people who were here who remember them
leave.
Still.
I mean, yeah, this is history that's not that far away. That was like, I did a show with Gary Yates, and I don't even remember, because I've done, I think, 2 or 3 with him this past year. But we somehow got talking about just history, and he was talking about how like he was just down the road when MLK got assassinated. And it's stuff like that of like, yeah, you would have been alive during, yeah, you're correct. You're correct. Because that's not 100 years in the past, like we like to think about, like people are still here. And so it's stuff like that that's so interesting. And like, how like we like to put even the Holocaust way back in the past. And it's like, no, there's still people, they're still alive. There's still some of the Tuskegee Airmen that are alive. They're here, living, breathing. People who were in concentration camps, living, breathing. But we like to put the bad history and pretend it was way, way, way long ago. And it's not a lot of the times.
You have to keep bringing it up to make sure that it does not happen again.
I forget who says it, but if we live and forget history, then we are doomed to repeat it.
Yes, we are.
I mean, that's basically what we're doing in this pandemic right now. 1918, Spanish flu influenza, lasted 2.5 years, and we have followed the exact trajectory of what happened in that influenza. Like we are exactly on trajectory with it. And I'm like, we literally had a roadmap of what not to do. And we were like, let's do this thing still.
As you continue working at the Fox and or working with Hamilton, I wish you luck on getting on that tour.
Thanks.
And if you get on the tour, have a great time. Remember where you came from and come on back and be with us.
I'll for sure come on back. I haven't taken over the Alliance Theater yet. I still got to do that.
Oh, well then, yeah. Okay, well you'll come on.
List of life. Come on, we gotta shake things up a little over there.
Thank you so much for taking the time today, Miss Lexi. I appreciate that. I enjoyed having a conversation with you. If you are watching us today, please take the time to comment below, subscribe, and like us. Come back next time and we'll have another exciting conversation. And meanwhile, keep the conversations going.
Let's have a heart-to-heart. Let's have a conversation. Let's have a heart-to-heart. Let's have a consultation. Let's have a heart-to-heart. Let's have a conversation. Let's have a heart-to-heart. Let's have